It's a quiet group today.
It's so quiet. Yeah. I see everyone is in here.
Oh, we have Nathaniel from Ethiopia. Hi, Nathaniel. I talked with you yesterday. I'm glad you could join us.
Yay. All right. We're live on YouTube now. We're famous. All right. Well, yeah, we would love to know where everyone is from. So, as you're here and we're introducing ourselves, please feel free to put in there where you're joining us from. Um, I ran a list of issued visas the other day, and I saw lots of countries on that list. So I saw like 39 visas from Nepal and from Ethiopia, quite a few, Zimbabwe. And we had a new place, Slovenia. So lots of individuals. We'd love to see where all of you are joining us from today, especially since we're talking about travel. So, where are you all going to be traveling from? And maybe Elizabeth or PJ and I have been there. But anyway,
We have Michael from Ethiopia also. All right, Ethiopia is representing
yay!
today.
Hi, Michael.
Welcome, Michael.
Do love our Ethiopians. We love everyone though. So I don't want anyone to think we have unfair. All right. So we are here to talk about travel. And I always forget that we need to introduce ourselves because I feel like I know all of you here. My name is Alyssa. I'm the Director of International Recruitment and Communication. And today, our recruitment team is here to talk about travel. So I will let Elizabeth and PJ introduce themselves before we get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Elizabeth. I work with Alyssa and PJ in the Kearney International Center at MSU, and I work as the Assistant Director for International Recruitment and Enrollment. Nice to see you all.
Hi, everybody. My name is PJ. I recently graduated from Minnesota State Mankato. I am from Nepal, and I will hopefully soon be joining Alyssa and Elizabeth in the office as the Assistant Director for Strategic Communications. I'm very excited to meet you all here, and we're going to talk about traveling. So that's also very exciting. I did see a couple of chats from Kavita from Nepal. Hi, we have someone from Nepal here, and then Dylan from Kenya. So it's really lovely to have you all here. I'm very excited to be here with Alyssa and Elizabeth as we talk about travel.
All right. And I'm very sorry, my PowerPoint actually just closed.
Do you need me to share it, maybe?
Oh, okay, here we go. It came up on my browser, so I think we're good. But all right. I will share my screen and we will get started. So, I hope that everybody is feeling prepared. And I apologize, I'm sharing my PowerPoint the old school way, but I'm just on my laptop. So, I also put coffee on here because, funny story, I had a very human moment this morning and I slept through my alarm and I really need coffee to stay awake. So it happens to us all. Please know this fall, if you sleep through one of your classes, even full-time staff sleep through things every once in a while. But all right, so what are we talking about today? We are talking about what airport to travel to, Customs and Border Patrol, and then actually traveling to Mankato once you are in Minnesota. Um, so we'll go through PJ, Elizabeth, and I. We're just going to kind of alternate presenters. We'll always jump in if we think we have additional advice. You all are more than welcome to put questions in the Q&A. So put your Q&As in there. We'll answer it as they come up or at the end if it's appropriate. And if you're joining us on YouTube this morning, you can put your questions in there as well. And can you see my screen correctly? I should ask.
We can see it, but it's like the preview mode, I guess you could say. So it has like the slides on the side, and then it's not in presenter mode, if that makes sense.
How about now?
Now it's good. Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll start off with airports. So there's, in the US, there's a lot of different airports, and there are certain airports that are designated as international airports. And Minneapolis St. Paul is actually the nearest international arrival airport. So if you can get a ticket where you are coming directly into Minneapolis St. Paul Airport, that might be the easiest for you. The customs is a little bit smaller there. It's a smaller airport, but it is very nice. But you may also be entering the US through Chicago, Miami, Atlanta, Houston. So there's a lot of different options. I personally like MSP. We'll get to that in a little bit about opinions and where we like to come through. But because it is smaller, I feel that CBP does kind of give you a little bit more time and attention. For those of you coming into MSP, international arrivals come in through Terminal 1, and that is where the shuttle and most items are located at Terminal 1. If you are coming from a different US airport, so maybe your first point of entry was Chicago, please double check which terminal you are arriving at MSP, because domestic arrivals may come in through Terminal 1 or Terminal 2. One thing about all airports in the United States, not only MSP, but airports in the US are non-smoking, and there is typically no smoking location in the airport. So, sometimes if you're a smoker, like in Turkey, you can go outside and there's a little smoking area. That is not here in the US. And if you are a smoker, you will need to exit the airport, smoke outside, and then go all the way back through security. So this is just a warning for anybody, especially if you're coming across on that international flight, but you have a tight connection. Be mindful of that. PJ or Elizabeth, anything that you'd want to say about our airport or maybe things to know about?
Just a note from personal experience, if you are coming on an international flight into MSP and probably all other airports, just be prepared to wait in a long line. They try to process people fairly quickly, but I've had experiences where multiple international flights arrive almost at the same time, and you end up in a really long line waiting to get through immigration and customs. So just be patient after long international flights. That can just be like very exhausting waiting in those lines to get through, but just be patient, be friendly to the staff. They will do their best to process you as quickly as possible. But just know sometimes timelines with arrivals can take unexpected twists with how long you have to wait in the line. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, I forgot. At MSP, we picked up some visitors in April, and one of our visitors had to wait in line for like 2.5 hours. So, use the bathroom before you go through passport control. All right. Elizabeth or PJ, do you want to take this slide?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So once you do arrive at whichever point of entry or port of entry, you come into the United States, you will have to go through passport control. So whether that's New York City or Chicago or LA or Seattle or MSP, it'll be a fairly similar process at each place. So you want to make sure that in your carry-on, you have all of your essential documents. So whether you're traveling with a backpack or a purse or some hand luggage, make sure you do not check these items below the plane in your checked luggage because you will not be able to access them. So the documents that are absolutely essential to travel with are your passport, of course, and then the visa, the F1 visa that is in your passport. Um, you will need to also bring your printed and signed I-20 document if you are an F1 student. If you happen to be coming on a J1 visa, the document that you carry with you would be the DS 2019, and that should also be printed and signed. And then you want to bring copies of a couple other documents just in case. So make sure to have copies of your financial affidavit or financial sponsor letter and the bank statement. These are the documents that you provided to Minnesota State University when you requested your I-20. So print those off and have copies of those. And then also make sure to print your admission letter from MSU and have a physical copy of that as well. Likely at the port of entry, passport control will not ask to see these documents, but sometimes they do. So just be prepared. Have everything printed off just in case they need to validate your status as an F1 or J1 student. So, any other recommendations either of you have? I know PJ, you've gone through this as an F1 student.
Yeah, I recommend like bringing a full, I don't know if you could see like a folder like this and then having everything in that folder so it's easier for you to access when you're at the port of entry and you can just like you know where everything is. So it's a lot easier. Again, like most likely they're only going to want to look at your I-20 and your passport and the visa before they ask some questions, but it's always a good idea to have them on hand. So if they ask, you know where it is and you're not like holding up line and getting like panicking. That's the biggest thing is you don't want to panic, even though it's a very nerve-wracking situation. I was very nervous. So just have everything on hand so it's easier for you to access them.
And I think, we just mentioned like MSP is a little bit smaller and therefore like staff sometimes has a little bit more I don't want to say patience because honestly, all of the passport control people I've ever had have been nice. But sometimes in Atlanta, there's like literally 1,000 people behind you, whereas at MSP, there's only maybe 300 people behind you. So they have a little bit more time and patience. But anyway, PJ, I think this would be a great slide for you to take about what to explain and be ready to
Mhm.
explain.
Yes. I've also had students ask me this question a lot. Or like, oh, what do they ask at the port of entry? Like, do they ask about? Um, So when you are there and you hand them your stuff, more likely than not, they're going to ask you a couple questions about the intent of your visit, right? And you're here to study. So usually for me, they asked me what university I was going to go to, Minnesota State University, Mankato. And they asked me what my major was going to be. And they also asked me how long I was planning to stay. Um, so they will ask you some questions. Usually, they only ask you one or two questions, but it's also, I understand that it's very scary experience of like coming into a new country and having someone ask you questions. But just be ready to answer these questions and answer them truthfully. You're here to study, so tell them that. And when that's all I would say. And then also make sure you have all the other documents. So when they ask you about your sponsor, if you have the sponsor letter and they want to see it, you can show them that. But for me personally, they only asked me like two questions of what university you're going to, what program, but it can also really depend on the agent that's letting you in. So just keep these questions in mind and have your answers prepared in your head as well. Do you think I'm missing anything else?
No, I think what you said about don't panic and just be calm. Like
Hmm.
that's really important.
Yeah, it don't panic. Yeah.
They're just trying to double check a few things. So, it's similar to your visa appointment where you answer the question, but don't just answer the question. Where are you going to school? MSU. Um,
Yeah.
don't give too much info. All right.
Yeah.
I have
Make
So,
it straight to.
I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Just one thing to add to that about the questions. Every once in a while, they may have you step aside and go to something called secondary
Thank
screening.
you.
This is not something to panic or be worried about. It can be something as simple as the airline entered your date of birth incorrectly on the ticket. So, like in the US, we do month, day, year. And maybe on your boarding pass or in your ticket, the date of birth was entered day, month, year, and there's just some discrepancy of information. Or they might need to verify something that some information that didn't come through to them. So sometimes that does happen to students where they'll ask you a few questions and then say, please step aside, and they'll bring you to a secondary screening room where they need to just do a little bit more investigation into your documents. So again, if that happens to you, don't panic. They're usually just trying to sort out information that they have that doesn't line up with what's showing up in their screen. So it's not anything to usually worry or be panicked about.
That actually ties in really nicely with the question from who asked? Oh, an anonymous question about approximately how much time does it take at customs at MSP airport? So, it can really vary depending on how many flights are coming in at once. Are you being pulled aside for secondary because maybe there is some sort of little data inconsistency? So I really recommend that you keep at least 3 hours between your flights. And I'm an impatient person, so sometimes I'm like, I can do this. And I've had a 2 hour layover. Um, and it was it was a mistake because even though I can go through customs really quickly, my flight was delayed and it kind of became a headache. So I recommend at least 3 hours. But if you are coming through somewhere like Houston, Atlanta, JFK, those are typically longer than MSP even. So, or Chicago. Last time I flew through Chicago, I actually had a 5 hour layover, and really only 2 hours of that was downtime. So it can really take a long time. PJ, have you ever had it take longer than that? Just because you're not a US citizen, that's why I'm asking.
No, I think that sounds about right. Like maybe 2 to 3 hours, I would assume, because it really depends. I flew in, my port of entry was Chicago O'Hare. I remember it being like 2.5 hours ish. So just keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I do recommend for all of you to take a screenshot of these phone numbers and have them saved in your phone. If you have any issues at the border, so maybe something on your CVIS record is causing a red flag, or they're just looking for some sort of confirmation, that's okay. You can have them call us. You can ask, even if you're standing at the booth. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to go to secondary, but you could say, like, oh, this could be cleared up if you call my DSO, but really try to answer the questions and go through as much as you can on your own. And if you are really just having a hard time, you can have CBP call us. Again, this isn't like if something small happens. This is if you are sitting, in secondary and they're just not able to verify anything. So these are the phone numbers you could call. Your first calls should always be to the front desk or the international admissions team, because they are going to connect you with the first available DSO. Um, Sometimes I'm on vacation, sometimes Elizabeth is on vacation. I actually have quite a bit of vacation right before orientation because I have a friend getting married. I don't know why she didn't reschedule based on our orientation date, but she didn't. So you can put my phone number in your phone. This is what I'm trying to get at. You can put my phone number in your phone, but sometimes my personal life takes precedence and I don't see that. Same with Elizabeth and her phone number. Sometimes she may not see it. And so your first call should be to the front desk or international admissions team. One thing though, when CBP calls, I actually can see on the screen of my cell phone, it will say Customs and Border Protection. So we do answer right away. So I'm going to leave this screen up just for one more second for you all to take a screenshot of, but I will also send these numbers out on the Telegram group. Who would like to talk about dogs? Anyone?
I can talk about the dogs.
Yeah, this is always
Um,
something we get questions on.
this is probably I'm trying to think. I've been to quite a few airports, and I feel like this maybe isn't just unique to the US, but you don't see it as often in other countries. But in the United States, it's very common to see trained security dogs at airports. Um, and I know a lot of people have different feelings about dogs, and some people are very afraid of dogs. And truthfully, the dogs that they use are usually like German shepherds or intimidating looking dogs, but they're highly trained, and they're there for security and protection of the airport. So what they're doing is they're searching for food, they're searching for money. These dogs are highly trained to smell money, which is crazy that they can do that, or sniff out drugs. So if you see these dogs in the airport, they're always with a person who is their handler, and they're usually just roaming through the airport, sniffing around on their duty. So don't be afraid. They're very well trained dogs. The dogs are not going to come up to you or interact with you unless you're going through like a security screening where they have the dog kind of sniff around you. Um, don't, if that happens to you, do not pet the dogs or ask to pet the dogs. The dogs are working. They're trained security officers essentially. So they are on duty and in work mode. So if a security officer with a dog does approach you, wait for the officer to tell you what to do. Sometimes at MSP airport, even when you're going through security, they'll actually have you walk past a dog that is doing a sniff check, and they'll have people walk two at a time past these dogs, and the dog just does circles around you. It doesn't come up to you like right next to you, but it just kind of sniffs a little bit, and they're looking for whatever they've been trained to smell. And so just be prepared for that. It can be a little bit shocking if you're not used to seeing that at a security checkpoint. So again, this isn't to intimidate you, but just to inform you of what to expect. The more you know, the more prepared you are.
Sorry, my slides are out of control here. I just wanted to add, with the dogs, the biggest thing that or actually one of the funniest things I've seen is someone just forgot a banana in their backpack from being on the flight, but you're not allowed to bring in fresh fruit. And the dog went up to him and the trainer gave him a treat. And then the dog went around the rest of the baggage claim. And I guess he just was hungry because I heard the same dog come back to the same man and like was looking for the banana again. And the trainer went to the human, that the dog went up to and said, "I'm really sorry. My dog is apparently just hungry today." So, you know, the dogs are very well trained. They might come up to you a second time. Don't get afraid. Maybe they're just hungry. All right, I'm sorry. I know that this is not in the correct format, but I just want to go over quickly travel to Mankato from MSP. So we've gotten a lot of questions and about this. I'm very sorry, but we will not be at the airport to pick you up. We're expecting anywhere from 300 to 400 students, and I wish I could pick each and every one of you up, but that is just not possible. There is a really good shuttle service, though, from MSP, which will bring you directly to campus. So that company is called Land to Air Express. It's going to be your best option. It costs anywhere from $5 to $30 one way, depending on when you book. It'll pick you up from Terminal 1 or Terminal 2. You indicate at the time that you're reserving the ticket, and then it'll drop you off at campus. This ride takes about an hour and a half, but they have Wi-Fi in the buses. On some of the bigger buses, there's a bathroom. I've taken it. It's really nice. I like it. You can sleep. It's comfortable and safe. Do not take a taxi or an Uber or Lyft. It's going to be very expensive. I have done this in the past when I've been with one other person because we came in really late, but we were okay that it was going to cost us each anywhere from $80 to $100 for that Uber ride. So one way can cost $160 up to $250 on a rideshare app. So really, if you get in late at night and there's not a shuttle available, the best option for you may actually be to get a hotel in the Twin Cities and then come down the next morning because you can usually find a pretty affordable hotel. All right. So that's our slideshow. I do see we have some questions here, though. Ooh, someone asked, what types of food are not allowed? Elizabeth or PJ? Would you like to?
That's a good question. So think fruits and vegetables. Pretty much any form of fresh fruit or vegetables are not allowed to be brought into the United States. There's very strict laws around this, like fresh produce. But if you have like dry goods, if you have dry goods, like trying to think of something, we have a lot of students whose parents will pack them like food from their home country, like spices, or I'm trying to think of other ingredients, some type of dry food that they might be sending with you. So you feel like you have some comfort food from home. That's typically okay. It's mainly just like fresh produce that they're most concerned about. Trying to think of anything else that's like on the
Yeah,
scary
meat
list.
is on the
Yes.
list sometimes. So even sometimes if it's a dried, like a jerky type meat, depending on how it's packaged, um, dairy goods are usually, I usually think, about if it's processed, the food is processed and in a package, it's usually okay because it has gone through some sort of processing to remove any sort of pests. But yeah, fruits and vegetables, I think, are what get most people. When I've seen people have the dog go up to them, it's usually like, oh, I forgot I had this apple in my bag. Or um, I've seen people take sandwiches out, pack a lunch and then you forget to eat it. And yeah, I will say typically when it's something like that, like a banana or an apple or a sandwich that you clearly meant to eat on the journey but didn't, they're literally just going to take it away from you and confiscate it the proper way. Nothing else usually happens. But if you're bringing in large quantity of food, go to the State Department website and check to make sure that it's okay to bring in with you. PJ, do you have any other, like, from a student perspective that you can think of?
I feel like a lot of students want to bring in like the dry goods, like you said, like the meat and stuff, but if they're not packaged and if they're not like sealed and packaged, then you usually are not able to bring those in. I know it's really tempting to want to bring a lot of stuff from home, but definitely check, like Alyssa said, the list online. You can always find it and double check that you're actually able to bring it or not. Sometimes you do declare it too. I remember filling out a form where you declare if you've brought something on there that's like on their list. You could do that, but I would honestly make sure that you go through the website and make sure that what you're bringing in, you can bring in, and that they're actually sealed and packaged instead of like bringing just out.
Yeah. All right. Um, so do we need to book the bus or shuttle in advance? PJ, do you want to take that one?
Yes, you should definitely book them in advance. You'll have to remember that orientation around July, August is when a lot of students are going to come in. And so that means a lot of students are going to be booking those buses. And the buses, they run quite a few like throughout the day. However, they do have, again, limited seats. So you want to make sure if you have your flight details, you know what time you're flying in, and just accounting for like the customs and everything, just book something in advance so it's easier for you. It's also going to be cheaper if you book it in advance, and it's also a safer option because then you know for a fact that you have a bus that you're going to get on to get to Mankato, and you're not stranded at the airport and trying to figure things out. So please book it in advance. It's called Land to Air Express that we showed you earlier. They should have all the dates already out. So
PJ, have you ever had it happen where you miss your scheduled shuttle? Maybe your
no.
flight's been okay. So I have had that happen. I booked a shuttle and my flight was delayed and I couldn't actually make it. Um, that's another great reason to use land to air because they're actually really understanding and flexible. They know that like you cannot control what's happening on the planes. So when you're reserving, be sure to put a phone number in. I know you may not have a US phone number, but if you have any phone number, I think they'll find a way to contact you. Like, I wonder if they use WhatsApp actually. But even if you don't have a phone number, write their phone number down and you could ask like your stewardess is not the right word anymore, but flight attendant. And likely they'd be able to help you get to a phone where you can call land to air shuttle and maybe reserve the next one. And they won't charge you twice. They just make you pay for the one ticket. So it happens. We've been there. All right. So where can I find the Telegram group? Oh, this is a great question. And actually, this is the same place you're going to find the land to air booking information. All of this is available on your KIC portal on that first page. So on there, we have all sorts of information for you, just like ready and available so that you can start making plans as they make sense for you. So I'm going to actually pull this up because I've been getting this question a lot. And I need everybody to learn how to go back into your KIC portal and check this information because this is where we are going to put all the relevant information coming up and where you're going to have to make your immigration requests when you're here. So it's really important that you are comfortable navigating this software. So I'm just going to share my screen again. If I, yeah. So on this page, I have too many windows open. Sorry. All right, on this page, see, we have all sorts of general tips on your visa process. Right here is where all the Telegram group information is. We do not send these links out via email or any other way for privacy issues. So you have to be a student here to get these links to join the Telegram group. This is for your safety and privacy. There's also the I-901 fee, how to pay that, your DS-160, all of this information. But when you come down, you can see arranging travel and housing. And right here on shuttle service from the airport is where that land to air link is. So you can go in there and just, quickly navigate and reserve your shuttle ticket. All right, so what is the shortest route to Mankato if arriving through Chicago? Elizabeth, do you want to take?
Oh, I think it asked, is it arriving through Chicago?
Oh,
So no,
oh,
it actually, the closest airport is going to be Minneapolis, St. Paul. So if you have a flight option to come to MSP, that will be the best and the closest option for you. The MSP airport is about 120 kilometers from Mankato. So on the land to air bus, that takes about anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get from the airport to campus. Um, if you were to fly into Chicago and try to travel from there, like by bus or by car, you would have to rent a car because the drive from Chicago to Mankato is about 5 to 6 hours, about closer to 6 hours. So it's quite a distance from Mankato if you were just landing in Chicago and then planning to come to Mankato directly from there. So definitely find MSP. That's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of money. And then just take that land to air shuttle. That's the easiest, simplest route.
My port of entry was Chicago, but I had a connecting flight from Chicago to Minneapolis. So if you did have to do that, it would be best for you to just get a flight directly to MSB.
all right. And we have one final question here that's relevant to travel before we wrap up. Can I come to the US and stay in my accommodation before the orientation date or class start date? And if I can, how many days before can I get there? So I have a feeling all three of us will probably, yeah, Elizabeth, I saw you unmute yourself. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure, sure. If you are living on campus, the earliest date that you can move into the dormitories is August 10th. And you do need to fill out an early arrival request form to let them know when you are planning to arrive to Mankato and move into the dormitories. They require this so that they have the room ready for you. Usually they have you live in a temporary room that won't be your final room for the semester, depending on when you arrive. So they'll explain that to you if it's a temporary room or if it's your permanent room for the year. But August 10th is the earliest you can arrive, and there is a cost for that. So I think it's $25 per day for each day that you arrive before August. I think it's 19th. I will double
I
check
think
on that,
that
but I
sounds
think it's
right.
19th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So potentially that could be 9 days where you would have to pay an additional $25 per day if you moved in on August 10th, and that would be billed to your student account. If you are living off campus in an apartment, the move-in date for your accommodations will depend on when your lease starts. Different apartment complexes have different lease start dates. So for some students, it could be August 1st is the earliest they can move in. Other students, it could be August 15th or August 20th. So you really want to pay attention to what that move-in date is. And if the move-in date for when your lease begins does not align with your arrival date to Mankato, you will need to make arrangements to stay somewhere, whether that's at a hotel or an Airbnb in Mankato, or you have a friend or family member that you can stay with while you're waiting to move into your apartment. Plan ahead so that you are not in a position where you don't have a place to stay when you arrive. You want to make sure you have some place to stay, whether that's a hotel or you're able to move directly into your dormitory or apartment. For a lot of students, there's usually a gap between the date of their arrival and the date that they can move into their apartment. So plan ahead with the budget in case you do have to pay for a hotel for 3 or 4 nights.
Yeah, I think students are so excited to get here, and we totally understand that. But definitely make sure that you can afford that additional cost of arriving early, because we don't have any free temporary housing. So, all right. Okay, there's one last question. I think it's great. I have a flight on August 6th. So what I'm worried about is, am I rushing up for early classes? I think August 6th is such a great arrival date. It will give you time to rest up, relax, get to know Mankato a little bit before you have to come to orientation. So my only recommendation, other than confirming your housing, is on when you arrive. Let's see, August 6th is a Tuesday. Like when you come and you get settled in, come see us at the Kearney International Center on August 7th, and we'll get you hooked up with your MAV card so that you can get on the buses. And we'll also just tell you some other stuff that's available to do until orientation. So, yeah, great arrival date. Well, with that, thank you. These were all really good questions. We're excited to see everybody in August. Elizabeth or PJ, do you have any words you'd like to share before the end of the webinar?
I feel like we've said this a lot, but don't be nervous. I can understand it's a very scary experience. You're embarking on a new journey, you're getting on a flight, you're going to a new country. So I'm sure there's a lot of feelings, but just know that we're here to support you. Come to the Kearney International Center when you're here, visit us. If you have any questions, we'd love to, show you around campus if we're able to, and, get you hooked up on, like Alyssa said, the math cards. And we're here to help. We're very nice, is all I'm gonna say. So don't be nervous. If you have any questions, ask. It's better to ask the questions than to not ask. That's what we're here for. So I'm very excited to see you guys. I can't wait. Good luck.
I echo what PJ said. On your journey, do not be afraid to ask for help. I know for a lot of students, this is your first time maybe traveling outside of your country. I know students have said that's their first time going on an airplane even. So just be patient, and at airports and along the way, there's always people there to help. So just don't be afraid to ask if you're not sure about something. Especially during your layovers that you might have at different airports. It can be confusing knowing where to go. So just find somebody to help you and don't be afraid to ask that. And just have a lot of patience and grace for yourself. I know it's a big journey and a big adventure. But you're going in very well prepared and excited. So it always works out. Even if there's delayed flights or delayed buses or whatever happens, something always works out. So don't panic in those situations.
Yeah, don't panic. We're here and we're going to be waiting for you to arrive and to help you out. So please continue to watch for webinars that come out. We have a few more scheduled, including the week before orientation. We have an orientation overview. So we go through like what every day of orientation is going to look like. 30 days prior to orientation, the orientation schedule is going to be published and available, guess where? On your KIC portal. So continue to monitor that site for more information. All right. Well, don't be shy. We're here. We're excited to meet you, and we will see you all soon.